Hi, I'm Rebecca and welcome to episode 34 of the Creabea Knitting Podcast. Hello and welcome. My name's Rebecca. I'm a knitter based in Edinburgh and this is a vlog or a podcast or a video cast all about knitting. And I've got lots to show. It's only been a week since the last episode and somehow I have been knitting up a storm. It's been a pretty knitting heavy week. So I've got loads to share today. I actually filmed this podcast last night after I finished work and like the sun was going, so it was really dark and I was like kind of frantic. But I wanted to get the podcast out today, so I was like, oh, like let me squeeze it in. And then something happened to the footage and I'm pretty sure I could troubleshoot it, but I'm taking that as a sign from the goddesses of knitting podcasts that I should refilm this episode. So I'm only like halfway through my coffee today, so hopefully I will not be quite as scatterbrained as I was yesterday. Even this morning I was like collecting all the things to talk about and I was like, oh, I forgot to talk about that yesterday. Oh, I forgot to talk about that yesterday. So hopefully today I will just take a deep breath and I will go. I also wanted to, before I jump into everything, say a huge thank you for all the really lovely comments on the last episode. I don't know why there were so many more comments than usual, but there were loads and they were just so lovely. So I'm working through them. I've replied to like a good chunk, but I've not replied to all of them. So I'll keep replying. And yeah, just really thank you. It's really nice when like those episodes where you get loads of comments are always like, oh, like warm and fuzzy feelings. So yeah, thank you for that. So what do we have today? I've got a pattern release. We've got a finished object that's like not related to any designs, just a finished object. We've got a pattern test recall and two finished objects that go with that test recall. And then we've got an old whip that I have not touched in months and a new whip that I cast on in the past week. So just a few things, and I have a little bit of acquisitions. It will be interesting if the post comes between now and by the time, I'm gonna have to film this in chunks I think this morning, between like when I get to the end of the video, if the post has arrived, I think I'll have acquisitions to show. I have one thing to show anyway, but I have some yarn on its way to me. And that's what we're getting into today. So let's hope I can keep this concise, but I'll also try to not speak really quickly and rush through it all. And show you everything that I've been working on. So the very first and the most exciting thing about today is it's pattern release day for the Lanark sweater, which is what I'm currently wearing. It is now available on Ravelry. It'll be available on Lovecrafts by the end of the weekend. Lovecrafts always take a few days to approve the pattern and I'm never organised enough to have it ready in advance. Like I'm always like, I did my final read through of the pattern this morning with like fresh eyes, do the final read through, make sure that I've like literally dotted the I's and crossed the T's and full stops and all those things. So I only upload it to Lovecrafts the same day I upload it to Ravelry, and Lovecrafts takes a few days. But it will be live there over the weekend. And I'm so excited. I am feeling good about this one. I feel like a little bit different to the last two, I feel. I don't know. I feel really organised. I feel really good about the pattern. I'm just, yeah, I'm feeling good. So let me talk a little bit about it. I am wearing one, I'm not gonna like, I'll do a little stand up. So this is my zipper. I'm wearing it with a little skirt today, it's just like tucked in. I think in an ideal state I would have a belt here, but I'm inside, so I'm not wearing a belt because I just want to be comfy. Okay, so I have a few versions of this. I think, let me talk about the pattern in general, then I'll talk about the versions and I'll show you some of the pictures we took at the photo shoot. So I can talk through all the yarns, and then I've got the discount code and I'll talk a little bit about the zip. That's what I'll do, that order. So the pattern is a drop shoulder design and it's got this big cozy collar which zips like all the way up to your neck and it's really cozy. You can make this, if you've got like, I've got quite a long neck I think, but you can make this, it does go all the way up. You can make the collar less deep or more deep. And you can keep the collar like up, like kind of cool, or you can like flatten it and it can be kind of folded over. It is knit roll over in half fisherman's rib, which is also half brioche. And so the pattern is written in half brioche. Sorry, the pattern is written, like there are two ways, it's called half fisherman's, okay. Half fisherman's rib is also known as half brioche, and there are two different ways to knit the stitch. So you can either knit one below on your knit stitches, or you can do like a slip stitch with the yarn over. It creates the same thing if you think about it, like you're just going down below a loop. And the pattern is written with the yarn over method because that's what I used, but there are instructions on like what to do if you decide to use the knit one below method. And it's DK weight, the gauge is 18 stitches per 10 centimeters in like 32 rows, which is 16 big V's because you knit into the stitch below or you wrap a yarn over. It has minimal shaping on the body, and it has like sort of, the arms are kind of gently tapered. This version I had sample knit, but I'll talk about it in a minute, and the decreases on this version are so slick. The decreases on the version I knit myself are much more obvious. So this person is a better knitter than I am. But yeah, you can see like there's some decreases down here in pattern, which are really cool. And yeah, it's got a zip, and that's about it, I think. The pattern was, okay, this is an important part, is the pattern was graded to a woman's size chart. And what that means is when you knit your own version, like the way I do it is I always knit the version that's going to fit me. Like I just knit it to fit. I never look at the size chart when I'm knitting my own version, which is usually the size 4. And then what happens is when you grade it, the grading chart, the chart will tell you, like for an average woman's bust size, what is then their upper arm circumference, for example. And that is what grading, that's what you do. So you try to like match up, it gives you standard sizes and it tries to match up. Now, of course, they're just standard sizes, so everyone's gonna be a bit different. It'll tell you like what is the standard yoke depth or like armhole depth for somebody with the bust size that you're grading to. And so that was done to a woman's size chart. However, it's oversized and there's no shaping. So when I released the pattern, there was a lot of interest, or when I did the tester call, there was a lot of interest in testing it for men. And so I think maybe half, like definitely a third to a half of the test call were knitting for men, which is really cool. I've had people test for knit men for both the Dorney and the Kerr sweater, but only like 1 or 2 in the test knit, whereas this was like most of the test knit was men, which is really cool. Not most of the test knit, like half the test knit. And so I also really wanted to make sure that the pattern was displayed on men, and so the pattern pictures, the final pattern has got my brother in it as well. He came to do some modelling for me. And we've also got Rob, who is the partner of one of the testers, who also comes to my knit night, Raya. Rob also came and took some pictures. So it is, as much as it's graded to a woman's size chart, it's the people who knitted it for men, or the men who knitted it for themselves, didn't make significant modifications. The only thing that they did was to lengthen the arms and the sleeves. There could be a scenario where the chest size and the upper arm size are given in the pattern, like the finished circumferences. If you were knitting for like a very broad man, or someone with like really big guns, there's also instructions in the pattern as to how to modify the armhole depth to make that bigger. All that to say, it's a genderless pattern. All gender is very welcome, and I wanted to try and display that by making sure that there are both male and female models. And when I say models, I mean my mum and my brother. So let me talk about the versions, and I'll talk about the pictures as we go. So this one is not in the pictures. This one was held hostage by the Royal Mail and didn't arrive on time to take the pictures, but I think it worked out pretty well because the ones in the pictures are this like stunning neutral palette, and this one is definitely not a neutral. So this version was sample knit for me by Carolina. She did an amazing job, and it is knit in Sandnesgarn Double Sunday in that orange feeling. It reads, I think on camera, like a little bit more red, but it is, to my eyes it's more orange, but every time I take a picture it's like red. And I've noticed this whenever I've seen this yarn used anywhere, like it reads red, but in my eyes in real life it reads orange. So I think this is going to take some bravery to wear, but my plan is to wear this all day today. So I'm like going to wear it to my work meetings and stuff and just get used to seeing myself wearing this colour, because it's a stunning sweater and I want to make the most out of it. So this is the first version. This is pretty soft, like soft to the touch. I'm not just wearing a camisole underneath it, and it's absolutely fine to wear. And I got my yarn from Beautiful Knitters in London. Okay, that's the one I'm wearing. Then let's jump back in time a little bit to the very first sample. This one I knit in Bare Naked Wool Kent DK. They sent me the yarn for this, so I did not pay for this yarn. They sent it to me and said, we'd love you to design something in our yarn. Can we send you some? And I said, yes, please. And I've talked about this story before, but when I got this yarn, like I already had a pattern in mind that I was gonna knit, like I knew what I was gonna knit this in, and I swatched and it didn't feel right, like it didn't really look right. The definition wasn't what I wanted for the stitch. And I had a bit of a panic because it was the first time I'd been sent yarn to design with, and I was still, like, that was in December. I mean, it must have already been maybe even November when they asked, because the pattern was finished in December. And I'd only released my first pattern in the October. So I'm still a very new designer, but I was even more of a new designer, and I was like, oh, they've sent me this yarn. It's quite expensive yarn. It's lovely, lovely yarn, but quite expensive. And I was like, oh my God, I've made a mistake. Like, I can't design in this. So then I kind of thought, this is very cheesy, but I was trying to think about like, okay, like let's think about what this yarn is and like what it means. And so the Bare Naked Wools are very natural, quite like outdoorsy, very rustic, and the yarn itself, it's all undyed. It's very like, it's pretty fuss free, but like classic and very timeless, and it's got a really nice bounce to it. So I was like, okay, squishy bounce, like what about something with ribbing and texture? What is like the most classic, like outdoorsy garment? And for me, that is the 3/4 zip. Now I will say the British media may or may not have put an article up around the 3/4 zip recently, which may or may not have been talking about how it's a status symbol, and I wasn't very impressed because I think it's a real timeless sweater for everyone. But this is the very first version I knit. So I will hold it up. I've also got a picture of me wearing this one. I will say, like, again, out of my comfort zone with this brown. They have a beautiful, like, oatmeal colour, and part of me wishes I picked that one because I think it's stunning. And I'm kind of like lusting after an oatmeal version of this. My plan is when I go to Rhinebeck to find some yarn to make an oatmeal version, because I feel like it's a sheep and wool festival. I feel like there must be some quite rustic yarns there. And I want this again, like a similar like rustic. Bare Naked Wools might even be there, I'm not even sure. So that is the original. It's a stunning yarn. It's really, really beautiful. It is pretty pricey, but I think it's pretty much worth the price. And if I don't find the yarn at Rhinebeck, I will just order Bare Naked Wools again. Because again, it's an investment, but it's beautiful. And it really, really did inspire this design. Okay, third version, I knit myself. So I had two samples I knit myself. Normally, for the pictures, I have test knitters, like local test knitters, usually people from my knit night, take part in the photos. However, for this one, I had one local tester who was Raya, who was knitting for our partner Rob, and he came to the pictures, but I didn't have any, otherwise there was nobody local to me, and I was really eager. I didn't want to put Raya on the spot and be like, can Rob do the photo? So I also wanted to make sure I had like a male and female model lined up. So on New Year's Day, I waited until my brother had a few ciders, and I was like, hey, so do you want to do these pictures with me? So I'm really grateful my mum and brother agreed to do it, and it was so fun. I got the pictures back and I cried, like actual tears. They perfectly captured the sweater, like the vibe I was trying to go for. But it was just so nice to see these like pictures of my mum looking really cool in my sweater, like pictures of my brother looking like really cool. And there's a cute, like the pattern pictures of three of us together. And it just made me really happy. So yeah, I got the pictures and I was through in the office, and Sam was in here, and I think he was maybe on a call, like a work call or something, and I came through with like tears streaming in my face, and he's like, what's wrong? I was like, the pictures are just so beautiful. So the second version, so that's why, that was all to say. Normally I would just knit myself. Usually I just knit a sample, like the first sample, and recently I've started knitting a second sample. But for this one, I wanted to have enough that my mum and brother had their own versions. The plan was not that they would keep them, but they are keeping them. And when I show you the pictures, you will see why, because they suit these sweaters. Like, these sweaters feel like they were made for them. So this feels, despite the fact I knit this with my own two hands, this feels like it's my mother's sweater. So this is the second sample I made. This one is in West Yorkshire Spinners Jacob's Fleece. and it is beautiful. Like I really like the big collar. It's also got a bit more, this is relatively soft. This one has got a bit more, like the collar stands up a bit more because it's a bit of a sturdier yarn, a bit more rustic. And I'll put the pictures in of my mum in this sweater. She just looks insane. Like she looks so good. And the original plan was that the navy version that my brother wore was going to be for my mum, and I was going to shorten the sleeves and shorten the body and give it to my mum. And she'd asked for a blue one. But my brother looked really good in that one. My mum tried this one on and I was like, that sweater like literally was just made for you. And so she's keeping this version. And I'm really pleased. I think she looks so good. I will say this sweater was an absolute steal. This yarn I used about 6.5 skeins. And I got it from my local yarn shop, so it was a little bit pricier, but not by much. I can get this online for as little as £5.50 or like £5.25, meaning this sweater costs less than £40, which is like, it's not like a yarn guzzler, but it does use a bit more yarn than usual because of the double, like the extra squish. And it's like 100% wool in this beautiful natural colour. And so I think that's an absolute steal. You see my increases are a bit more obvious than the test knitter and the sample knitters. So yeah, that is version 2. No, that's version 3. And then version 4, I will put the pictures here. That's my brother's version. He looks so good. He got a haircut for the day, and he just like, he's gonna be a bit awkward in real life. So I was a bit worried about how he'd be in the pictures. But I think he looks very like rugged on the beach. I think he pulled it off very well. And I've had a few messages like semi creepy. No, people are like, oh, he's so handsome. Oh, is he single? He is not single. He has a lovely girlfriend. But yeah, I was very grateful to him for taking the pictures, and his blue one is still with him. I've not seen him since the pictures, and so I didn't get it back. So those are my 4 versions. Oh, that 4th one is knit in Tuka Wool DK in the navy colour. It's called like Twinny or something. I think it's called Twinny. And it is, yeah, I got it from Tangled Yarn. It's probably the most rustic of the 4 yarns I use. Like this is, the Bare Naked Wools is the softest, and then this one, and then the White Ecru, and then the Tuka Wool. And actually I ordered an extra, the sample knitter for that was lovely Lucy. She did an amazing job. She got it back to me, like that one had length in body and length in sleeves, and she still finished it like a month before any of the test knitters finished. And she thought she was going to run out of yarn, so I ordered her an extra skein. She didn't use it, so I still have 1 single skein of Tuka Wool DK, which is nice because it is on my to knit with list. The last thing about this pattern, and I promise I will shut up about it, is the zip. So I've put a video that I put a reel on Instagram, and I also made a tutorial video for the pattern. Now, usually when I make tutorial videos, they're unlisted videos, so you can't see them unless you click through from the pattern. Like you have to have the URL to find them. But for this one, I'm going to make the video public on YouTube. And that is just because I've had so many questions about the zip, and I think a lot of people are uncertain about how to sew the zip. It's so easy. It is like jaw-droppingly simple and just requires a little bit of patience. And so I'm going to make that video public so that you kind of like know what you're getting into. If that's the thing you're worried about, you can go and watch the video and have a bit more like clarity and understanding about what you need to do with the zip, in case that's a decision-making factor for you. All the sweater uses a 35cm zip. Some of the smaller sizes will need to trim the zip. In fact, most of the smaller sizes need to trim the zip. But again, there are instructions on how to trim the zip. And you don't need to worry too much. So for this one, it's obviously like an ecru colour. The zipper tape is actually beige. You see that? Or like a taupey colour. But you can't see that when, I've got makeup on my hands. You can't see that when the zip is sewn in, so you don't need to worry too much about it being like a perfect match. And also, as long as you use a thread which matches your knitting, you cannot see the hand stitches. So don't worry about neatness. Like it doesn't make any difference, basically. Cool. So yeah, that is it. It is live. The link for the pattern is down below. The discount code is down below. The discount will run until Sunday, end of day. If you apply to test knit this pattern back in December, you will also have an email with an extra bit of discount. I usually do that and send everyone who applied to test gets an extra little bit off the price because they offered their time and resources to test my pattern. So that's my little thank you in response. And yeah, it was a really fun test. There were obviously, I think with every test, like there are areas that like people get a little bit stuck on, and with this one, there are only maybe like 2 or 3 rows in the whole pattern that are challenging, but trying to make sure that those 2 or 3 rows make complete sense to the knitter is tricky. And so that was really nice. Like the good thing is it's all up in here, it's all up in the collar area, and that's the first part. So I had all that feedback from really early on, and I'm really confident that what's in the pattern is like the clearest version of the instructions. And with a sweater, and I think this is what a lot of the testers have said, is like you finish it and you're like, did I make this with my own hands? Like there's something about it where the construction is quite seamless and quite slick, where you're like, oh, that's cool. And also like swing the zip in and stuff, like it feels like a ready to wear sweater, but better. It's by far, like this is by far the best things I've ever knit, hands down, or my Lanark sweaters. So yeah, it is live. Thank you for indulging me by listening to 20 minutes of me talking about one sweater. I will swiftly move on. I do have another design to talk about, but I will give you a little break from me talking about me and talk about another finished object. Now, this is technically the Wednesday sweater by Petite Knit. I started this sweater, well, I ordered from Holst in their Black Friday sale. I've done that for the past 2 years now. And this is this is their Cielo base. Now Cielo is like, it's actually a chainette yarn, but it reminds me a lot of like Camaro Snefnug or Drops Air with that, like the blown yarn with that like bouncy texture. This feels pretty similar. It's got like a core and then it's got lots of fluff around it. It's very stretchy yarn. And again, it's like 110 meters per ball. So it's got like a similar yardage to those two, like Drops Air and Camaros. I've used it twice before, but the 2 garments I've used it in before I have not kept, both because of fit issues, and it's kind of like I really wanted to knit with it and keep the sweater. So in the sale back in November, I placed an order. I got a couple of cones, but I also got a sweater's quantity of the Cielo. And earlier this year, like sometime in January, I was like, I need to cast this on because it's not a summer yarn. It's not something I think I'm going to want to knit with in summer. Like I think I need to get this on my needles and off my needles whilst it's still cold, because it's like fluffy. And so that's what I did, and I cast it on a while ago. I wasn't sure what sweater to knit, and then Yenny, who is Finglish Knits on Instagram, she's also been in my Cargill and my Dorney photo shoots. She came to knit night and was knitting the Wednesday sweater by Petite Knit in Yarnicorn. Is that We Are Knitters Yarnicorn? And she was like, oh, it knit up so fast. And that's just magic to my ears when I hear that. Magic to my ears? Music to my ears when I hear that. Like, oh, it knits up fast. And so I cast this on. Now, I did not get, sorry about hiccups. I did not get gauge. My gauge is looser than the gauge in the pattern, but I really like the fabric I got and I did not want to knit it any denser. So I took my gauge, worked out how many stitches I would need for the bust size to give me the same ease for the size that I would normally knit, and found that number was exactly the same number of stitches to size 1 in the pattern. So I followed all of the instructions for size 1. The only difference is when it says like knit for X number of centimeters, or like until something measures this length, at that point I jumped to I think the size 4, size 3, size 4, can't remember. I jumped to like the length measurements for my true size. But all the stitch counts I followed, and all like the increase rates and all those things I followed for size 1. I'm really, really pleased with this. I'm going to hold it up because I'm talking about it without showing you. What if I just knocked over? Oh, my hair. My little hair. You can go there. There we go. Yeah, so this is it. Now, can you tell that I took this off and left it in a pile on the floor yesterday, and now it's got a bit crumpled in the front. It is a really beautiful, like kind of heathery mushroom colour, and you might be like, hey, that doesn't look like the Wednesday sweater. I did make some changes, mostly in the ribbing. It's not twisted rib, it's regular rib. I did a folded collar instead of doing the turtleneck. I actually have a video of this. I will say it's not been blocked. This intention with this sweater was to be like a work from home sweater, something cozy that I could wear through the week, I feel like a lot of my sweaters, I'm like, oh, they're too fancy to wear from working from home. So I never put them on, unless I'm going out somewhere. But I want to wear sweaters at home, but then the ones that I leave as my at-home sweaters are like my really scruffy ones, which I don't want to be on like Zoom calls, because they look really scruffy. So this is kind of meant to fill that gap of being a little, like not so scruffy, but like cozy and warm. So I finished it on Wednesday and I've not blocked it. I will block it maybe actually today after I finish recording. And hopefully it'll be dry by Monday so I can wear it again for my work from home. But I already have a sweater in this colour with a turtleneck, and I don't wear it that often because I find I have to be very cold to enjoy the turtleneck. Otherwise it feels like it's a bit too much yarn. And the sleeves and the body both have shorter ribbings. I think I did the sleeves for like 8 centimetres and the body for about the same. I think the pattern calls for like 14 centimetres. And the pattern might also have a split hem. Basically, once I've done the yoke, I just knit. I mean, the sleeves, I like picked up the right number and followed the decreases and things. It was really nice to knit. I stopped knitting it for a while because I thought I was going to run out of yarn. I only had 4 balls left. And I had to still do the body ribbing and the sleeves, and I was like, 4 balls is not going to get me anywhere, but it did. I still have like half a ball left. I weighed out how much I had before I started my first sleeve, and like I flew through the sleeve in a day. It's really nice, like 16 stitches I think per 10 centimetres I have, so I knit very quickly. I will say, it is finished on Wednesday. There is already some wear on this yarn. Like, you can see this. And I think like under the sleeves you can see a little bit. Now, I don't mind a bit of bubbling, to be honest, as long as it shaves off and at some point if it stops pilling. Now pilling is really just, it's very soft, so it's going to pill. So I'm fine with that. I don't mind pilling, but as long as it's not like constantly pilling, or unless it's not like, you know those ones that pill and then you never get them looking fresh again? I hope it's not that. So that's what we're hoping for. But yeah, I'm a fan. It's pretty light, but really cozy. I think I ended up using like 9.5 balls of yarn, which must be around about 1,000 meters, so not a huge amount of yarn. Is that right? Yeah, I had 10 balls. I've got half a ball left. This yarn is it's not that expensive to start with, but in the Holst sales it becomes quite cheap. I think it goes down to like £5 something in their Black Friday sale. So I think that I mean I'm not desperate to knit with this again, but I do think that in the next, like in November, planning ahead, I would probably buy another sweater quantity of this. They have a really nice green and a really nice like cinnamon rust colour, which I've got my eyes on. So yeah, that's my Wednesday sweater. Oh, my last thing is just I'm gonna have to put a bit of elastic in the neck. It's not terrible, it's actually sitting pretty flat here, but I'm just finding the yarn isn't very structured, and so the neck is kind of like funneling out a little bit, which is completely fine. I will just thread, once I've blocked it, I'm not going to make it a really tight neck, I'm just going to thread a bit of elastic through. It's a folded neck, so it's really easy to do. What I usually do is put the elastic, I just use like cord elastic, and I put it from the outside, I put it into the stitch, and then I go all the way around, and then I pull it back out the same hole that I put in the needle in the first place, tie it in a knot, and then like push that knot back through this is the gap, and then you can't see it. And that means also if you, I don't know, if it bags out in the future or you want to take out that elastic, you could like fish in through a stitch, pull that out, just give it a snip and pull the rest out. Life hack. So that's my Wednesday sweater. I'm really pleased. It gave me a bit of motivation actually. I have at the moment three top down sweaters that are stockinette plain on my needles, all on the body, and I'm kind of feeling good about casting on some new things. I want to cast on a blue sweater, and yeah, I just want to cast on some new plain knitting, but I can't do that until I have finished some of these off. So I'm just trying to, like when I've got things like meetings, or I've been doing a lot of reading in the past week. I got really into ACOTAR and read 3 books in 2 days or something. Like 3 books in like, no it's not, it was like 5 days. And I can knit stockinette in the round whilst reading, so I've been doing that a lot. And I'm just trying to focus on getting some of those cleared off so I can wear them firstly, and also so that I can clear my needles up. I had to cast something on the other day and I did not have enough project bags, and I have project bags but they weren't like my favourite project bags, and that to me is a sign that I need more project bags? No, that's a sign that I have too many things on my needles. Cool, so we're back into designing land. I showed this last time and I have made some progress. So I think what, there might be a late summer pattern coming out, like there might be one more in the summer, but I think right now, this is my last tester call for a while. I have, other than this, like no more designs on the needles. I have one for a magazine that's coming out later in the year, but that's like, that won't be a test call, that'll just be me writing it up and writing up and grading it and things. So there might be one more summer pattern, but that's really, I'm just gonna wait and see how I feel. Like I might not even bother with that one, I might just knit it for myself, or I might just wait until next summer. So this is my summer pattern, basically, is what I'm saying. And I talked about this in depth in the last episode, but I was sent some yarn by Woolyknit. I am a huge Woolyknit fan. They are the only big brand that I've really done a collaboration with. We did the Cone Along almost exactly a year ago now, and I just really like them. I've enjoyed working with them. They send me yarn and I have promoted them in the past, and yeah, good things to say. The prices have gone up a little bit in the past year, but like I still think that they're so well priced for what they are, and it's a real workhorse yarn, and really like everything I've knit with is I really like knitting with the exception of their sock yarn. I don't like their sock yarn, but I love their British wool. It's my favourite of all of them, like hands down. Maybe like if I had to pick one yarn to knit with for the rest of my life, I think I would probably pick that. It's super versatile, so like one strand, two strands held together, loads of different colours, good for colour work, good for texture. Their merino wool is lovely. It is it's non-superwash merino, so like don't expect like buttery soft, but it reminds me of this actually. Like this is pretty similar to the merino. I've used their chunky. Actually, I'm currently making a crochet blanket, which I've made no progress on in like at least a month. And now they sent me some other cotton to design with. Now, if you're interested in their other bases that are not the cotton, Bethany from Well Loved Knit is running a knit along called, I think, Well Loved Woolyknit, something like that. And I think she's got a 20% off their merino and their British wool. I don't need any more, but I would recommend checking that one out. I am designing in their cotton yarn, it's 100% cotton, and I'll have a pattern coming out mid-May, and when I release that pattern there will also be a discount code on the yarn for full transparency. They have sent me some yarn and I've got some yarn to show that I purchased. So I just want to be like, from a very transparent perspective, the only yarn that I've shown in this episode which has been not purchased by me has been the Bare Naked Wool's Kent DK for the zipper, the brown one, and the two t-shirts I'm about to show you. To make that even more confusing, I'm going to take a step back and show you one that's not knit in their yarn, which is this t-shirt I knit last year. I am a bit fussy about summer knits. I don't like most of them. I just feel like they're too stiff, and I don't always love summer fibres, and they're too fussy, and I don't really want to be wearing loads of lace, and like I just want simple, clean, fun to wear, easy to knit patterns for summer. And they definitely exist, but there are not loads of them. I feel like the market is dominated by like quite fussy summer patterns. And so, or patterns which are non-size inclusive, that's the other thing. There are a lot of beautiful patterns out there that only go up to like a 120 centimetre bust. So last year, before I was designing or knew what I was doing, I cast on a raglan t-shirt and absolutely wore it to death last summer. So this is the t-shirt that I cast on. It is a crop t-shirt. I knit this one in Drops Bell, which is a linen viscose cotton blend. I have some footage of me wearing this one. And like I say, I wore it to death. It's quite a loose gauge, so it's like a 17 stitch gauge with DK weight yarn. So it really makes for this like, this is one of the drapiest because it's got the viscose, which makes really drapey. But I wore it to death. Woolyknit sent me this yarn. I got myself into like a tiz, and I was trying to like over design, and I was getting myself a bit stressed. And then I was like, what did I really love to wear last year? Or like I was trying to think of actually non-knitted things in my wardrobe. I was like, what are the kind of top designs that I like to wear in summer? And then I found this t-shirt and I was like, I'm making my life hard. I should just write up the pattern for this, because when I first showed it on the podcast and when I showed it in my 2022 wrap-up video, I got loads of emails asking about it. But it's a really lovely cut t-shirt. Like it's got this quite wide, like it's not too wide a neck, but it's like quite wide, so it's a little bit of collarbone, but not like, it's not going to show your bra straps. And the raglan starts quite wide on the shoulder, which I always seem to love. Like my cargill is the same actually. It's not like a shallow, it's quite a deep raglan. And so it's an interesting cut. But I also wanted to make sure that the t-shirt wasn't just another raglan t-shirt. Because there are a lot of those out there. And like I freestyled one last year, so why, you know, I want to make sure that there's value added if I'm going to sell the pattern. And so the plan is that there are lots of versions of this, and you can kind of like plug and play, like build your own adventure in a t-shirt. Now the basic t-shirt will be, the pattern will be written with a basic raglan t-shirt, but there will then be sections on how you can add different modifications. And the ones I'm mostly thinking about are stripes, texture, eyelets. You could do like a contrast cast on and bind off. You could lengthen the sleeves a little bit. You could do garter bumps. You could do like embroidery, or you could really play around with different stripes and texture, thick stripes, thin stripes, etc. So the plan is that there's like lots of different modifications. But I wanted to have a couple of those, like I wanted to make sure that made sense and make sure that plugging those in wouldn't change the like things like the gauge and stuff, which stripes wouldn't, but lace, for example, or like texture might. And I wanted to make sure it like worked, so I made a couple of samples. I have finished 2 samples since last week. One was on my needles, one that's finished, and I got another one on and off, and I'm already on the 3rd. So this is the one that I was knitting last week. I've got again footage of me wearing this. This is the eyelet version. So, well, that's actually backwards. There we go. So it just had these like, every certain number of rows you just do knit 2 together yarn overs for these like stripy eyelets, and they carry on over the raglan, and they're not on the short, like, so for most of them the recommendation is just to start this pattern after the short rows, but there will also be, like, if you want to start the stripes in the short rows, there'll be instructions on how to do that. This one I love, I really love this. I think it fits really well, and it looks kind of fancy, like quite dainty and like put together, but it's super fuss free to wear. So I'll have some footage of that one. The second one that I finished is currently still plain, and it is in the navy. Now the white and the navy were both sent to me by Woolyknit. And this is just a plain one. My plan is to do some embroidery. I have some inspiration, I'll put the picture here. I think I've had this on a Pinterest board for maybe 5 years. So I'm gonna give it a go. I also, however, bought some pre-embroidered daisies. Sorry, it's making noise. And they are just, yeah, oh, I dropped one. They're just like little, they're already made up. And you can just sew them on. And so I might, like, that's kind of my cop out. Like, if I start the embroidery and either I'm not enjoying it or it's not turning out the way I want it to look, I think I will just put daisies like sporadically over the front. I'm hoping to do this weekend. So I might have, I'll bring this back next week if I've done the embroidery to show you what it looked like, to see if it works. But that's kind of the mentality. Like, it's a quick knit. My first version, that white one, took me 3 days. Now, I know that's extreme, but like, I think for most knitters, obviously it depends on the size that you're knitting and it depends on the time you're putting into it, but it's not going to be something that's going to be like languishing on your needles for months. And so I was quite inspired when we've been the recent lentil knit along that people were taking like risks with it because it's quite a quick knit and it doesn't use up very much yarn. And I wanted it to be kind of similar to that. So you felt like, oh well, it's only going to be a few weeks of knitting time. It's only going to be like relatively inexpensive cotton yarn. Like, I can try embroidering all over it, or I can try this new technique that I've just learned, because it's kind of like low commitment. So that's the vibe. So I've got a third version. Let me show you this one and then I'll talk about the test knit. So my third one is on the needles right now, and this is using up for the most part, the leftovers from the white and the blue. However, I will say I've ordered more yarn. So there was 1 cone of white and one, or it's actually cream, it's not white I'm using, it's the cream, natural cream. And then I ordered 3 more cones, and one of them was another cone of the white. They did email me and say, like, if you need any more colours, let us know, but I ordered from them anyway. And so this is the one that's currently on my needles. What I've done with this is I cast on a fewer number of stitches at the collar, and I did a deeper collar. So the other one's got like maybe an inch wide, like, yeah, 3 centimetre wide collar. This one's more like 5. And then I did an increase round immediately after to get myself to the stitch count I needed for the raglan. I did the short rows just without stripes because I think it makes life much easier, and I don't think you can tell when it's on. And I realised when knitting this one that it made a lot more sense to move the beginning of round, which makes striping much, much easier. So the beginning of round was right in the back neck, it's now in the back raglan, so that like stripe jog, if there is one, is like hidden in the raglan stitch, as opposed to it being like really obvious in the back of your neck. So yeah, that's where we're at with this one. I split for sleeves and I've done like 3 centimeters of the body. Yeah, so this is version 3, and then I've got a 4th version with like thicker stripes planned in these 2 colours. These are out of my comfort zone, the pink and the red, but Tracy from the Grocery Girls made a pink and red sweater recently, and I'm pretty sure that Laura Penrose's sibling sweater also has a pink and red, like the original sample is pink and red, so I'm feeling inspired. So that's the pattern. Now let me talk a little bit about the test call. My neighbours are cooking something downstairs and it smells so good. It's making me hungry. Okay, the tester call for the Tolsta t-shirt, it's called Tolsta. Did I say that already? Tolsta is a beach in the Isle of Lewis in Scotland. Corrin, which is the other sort of spring summer design, is also a beach. We're trying to stick to like the Scottish geographical names. The form for signing up for the testnet is down below. My plan is to keep this open until Thursday. I won't be sharing it on Instagram until after the Lanark launch weekend, so probably not until Monday. So actually, sorry, Wednesday it'll be open till. So I'm hoping to keep it open all the way through. My most recent test call, I had 400 applications and I closed it when it got to over 400 because that just takes a lot of time to go through. So if it reaches that number, I'll be closing the application form. So if you click on it and it says this form is no longer accepting applications, that is why. All the details are there. So the yarn that I've used, the yardages are there, the sizes are also there. There's also a mood board linked. Now I have had so much fun on Pinterest creating a mood board of like mostly ready to wear designs that would like have elements that you could plug into the Tolsta. So things like ones with like eyelets or like different interesting stripes or like texture and things. So feel free to have a look through there, but also I'm trying to like encourage creativity. So if you have an idea, or you just see this one, you're like, I really like the plain t-shirt, or like I really like that eyelet t-shirt, that's also completely, like I'd like to have as wide a variety of tests as possible. And what was I gonna say? Something else. Oh, there's a box in the form which asks for like what modifications you would make, like will you make modifications, and if so what would they be, and that's just to try and make sure that I can get as wide a variety of options, like some people knitting plain versions and some doing stripes and some doing this stripe and that kind of stripe, and like that I want to make sure that as many options are covered in the test net, so that's why that is there. The test starts on Thursday of next week, yeah, so it'll close on Wednesday, the test will start on Thursday, and it's a 7-week test, which is a week less than I normally do. Normally I do an 8-week test, but it's short sleeves, and I think even for the largest sizes, 7 weeks is a lot of time. I'm a fast knitter, so I'm not expecting anyone else to churn one out in 3 days. But I think 7 weeks will be more than enough, I'm hoping. So yeah, so that is down below if you're interested. I think I was just having a think actually about if I do another one for the summer, and if I do another test knit for the summer, like the test knit will have to start in May, and if the test knit starts in May, like we'll have to release it like early July, so it has to be done by like, for an 8-week test it has to be started at the beginning of May, which means I need to have the pattern ready and graded by the end of April, so like that means I pretty much have to have already have the design on my needles in the next week. So we'll see how I'm feeling. I might still do it, I might start doing some swatching and see how I get on with it, but there's a strong possibility that this will be my last test call for the next couple of months. My email is linked there, and my email is always linked down below, but if you ever have questions about my design, about anything, like even if it's just something else I've knit that's not a design, you can always email me, or you can drop me an Instagram message, and you technically can message me on Ravelry, but I'm always a bit rubbish at responding on Ravelry just because I don't check my messages there very often. So Instagram and emails are the best ways to get my attention if you want or need it. Cool, I have 2 more things to talk about, and then that is us finished, and then when I finish recording I'm going to go and press live on Lanark. So this is not a design. I'm trying to like, I'll go design, non-design, design, non-design. I'm quite eager to like, I don't want to, designing is something that I'm now very passionate about, and I can see it being something that's This is funny, if you've been here for a while, you remember when I was like, I want to design one thing and I'll only design one thing. Yes, well, I was talking nonsense. But I would like to make sure that I think it's important to knit other people's patterns, and also I want to make sure from a podcast perspective that I'm not just talking about my own stuff, like I want to be talking about other designs. So I try to keep that balance, just letting you know. So this has been on my needles for a very long time. When I filmed yesterday, I realised that I cast this on for our trip to Ireland, and during that trip to Ireland is when I published my very first pattern. So this has been on my needles for that long, since like 6 months basically. This is the Stockholm sweater by also Petite Knit. I should add, if I say I'm going to knit other people's designs, I probably should make sure that I'm not just knitting Petite Knit designs, but I can't promise anything. I made one of these a while ago, like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. That's not that long, but I've only been knitting for 3 years, so by my knitting timeline, that is quite a long time ago. And it's one of my favourite sweaters. I knit it in drops alpaca and sadness garn tin silk mohair, and it is the most amazing drapey fabric, and it's beautiful. And I have like 10 more planned. So I finally cast one on at the end of last year, and I cast it on in this colour because we were going to Ireland. We spent 4 days, 3 days in Dublin and 3 days in Belfast, I believe. And this is it. Now it has been crumpled up in a project bag since October, hence why it's very wrinkled. But I pulled this out this week. As I said, I've been doing some reading and knitting, and when I finished my Wednesday sweater, I was like, okay, what next? And so I pulled this one out. I had grand ideas. We were going to go to the cinema this week, but I got a bit bulldozed by work and pattern release. It just makes for a very, very busy week. I was basically working like 9 till 5:30, 6, taking a little break, getting back to my computer, and then working from 7 till 10 for the past like 2 weeks. So on Wednesday we were like, oh, the cinema, but then I was like, actually I could really do with this time to do some pattern writing and to like work through the final edits and things. So we didn't go to the cinema, but I pulled this out with the intention of being like, oh, if I pull this out, oh, I just spotted somewhere that I've not caught the main yarn, I've just caught the mohair. Oh, last episode I found a drop stitch, and this episode I found this. But on that note, when I was knitting this, I keep only catching one thread and not the mohair, or like, and then I have these big loops of mohair, and I think it's because the main yarn is so sticky. It's really rustic and sticky that I think it's just, it's not like a nightmare difficult to knit, but it's definitely a bit tricky. And I can see even here, like there's a loop there of mohair that I've just not caught in the stitch. So all that to say, I didn't think it was a good idea to take it to the cinema because I didn't think I would have a very, like, it's TV knitting and it's reading knitting where I've got daylight and I can look down, but I don't think it would work in the cinema. But I've been working on it anyway. So you can see I'm on the body. This sweater has decreases in the body and I've not done those. I've just kept them plain, and I've done maybe like, what is that, like 13, 14 centimetres maybe of the body. I know that my gauge up here is quite dense, and I don't know if I love it, to be honest, but I'm not going to rip it out at this stage. I think I was just knitting really tightly, to be honest, and I can see the difference in sizes for my stitches at the top versus at the bottom. I'm hoping it's going to block out pretty evenly, and it's a plain stockinette sweater, so it's not the end of the world if it's a bit different, but just something to note. I don't think the yarns are any thicker than the yarn I used in the original, so that's why I wasn't expecting there to be, I did swatch, but I expected the fabric to feel quite similar, but this is quite a rustic wool, and last time I used an alpaca, 100% alpaca, and alpaca is super drapey and like almost silky soft, so it makes sense that my first version is a lot drapier. So I'm using this, which is Mondim from Retrosaria Rosa Pomar. I love this colour, I think it's a beautiful green. It is super similar to my eye colour, which I mentioned every time I knit this sweater, and I'm using Filcolana Tilia in also like a khaki green. The main yarn is a bit brighter and this one is a bit duller, but together they make a really interesting, like, it's quite a bright green. It's not like a dull muddy colour, it's relatively bright, but it is still like this real rich dark green. I will say it does not feel like the sweater I want to be knitting into summer. This feels like an autumnal sweater, but I'm excited to have it anyway. I think it will look quite good with my colourings. I think I will look very Celtic with my dark hair, my dark eyes, my dark sweater. So yeah, I'm just working away on that one. I am not expecting to like fly through it, and I've got a lot on my needles right now, but I pulled it back out a little bit of hibernation. We're making some progress. We are clearing off our needles, like a bit of spring cleaning is kind of how I'm feeling, if that makes sense. And especially if I'm like reading and stuff, I'm trying to get a couple of rows in there. Okay, one last whip, and then I'm pretty much done, I think. I technically have one skein of yarn to show, but I didn't bring it in. I'm too lazy. I'm not going to talk about it today. I'll talk about it when I cast it on. It's a skein of Woolyknit British wool. I ordered it at the same time as I ordered these, and it is in the cobalt blue colour. It's not called cobalt blue, it's called something else actually. Chevy blue or something? I can't remember. Okay, I showed this, this is in my Petite knit bags. I love these bags, these are my favourite bags. And actually, what's a good fact is that I had this yesterday, and I showed it when I filmed yesterday, and I realised that it was on a way too small of a needle. So between filming yesterday and now, I knit it onto a larger needle so that I can show it off better when I refilm today. So theoretically, you're benefiting from me making a mistake yesterday by getting a better view of what I've been working on. So I showed this as a swatch last time. This is something I have lined up for autumn time. I am in no rush to knit this. I'm just enjoying it. I would like to do quite a long test knit on this. I think it's a relatively, like, it's not labour intensive, but it's a slower going. It's an all over textured sweater, so it takes a bit longer to knit than a plain stockinette sweater. And I am in love. I cast this on when we went to Italy a few weeks ago, and I was in the round and I was going, and I realised the neckline was way too small, like the round here was too small. I have quite a dramatic, it's not dramatic, I have a design feature in mind for the neckline, so I wanted there to be a relatively like deep neck so that I have more space to be able to do that design. And so I cast it back, well, I ripped it out with the intention of casting it back on, and it is back on the needles. And this is how it's looking. It looks so ridiculous. So this is what it looks like. It is this all over, like, really interesting slip stitch design. And I just adore it. I think it looks so interesting. I feel like it's so fun to knit up. It's an 18 stitch gauge, so it's not like super tiny stitches, but I'm using 3.75. But every row you're doing something, like either you're slipping or you're knitting together or you're creating new stitches. So like every row has got something going on. It's technically an 8 row repeat, I think. Yeah, it's 4 sets of 2, so like 2 in brown, 2 in, for me it's like 2 in brown, 2 in beige, 2 in brown, 2 in beige. And it's really memorisable. Like I have nothing written down. I'm just knitting. So I think like it's kind of similar to the cargill in that way. Like once you get to a certain, like it's quite, once it clicks and you know where you're at, it's pretty easy just to follow the pattern. What I really love, I showed last time the swatch where I used a purl stitch as the raglan, and that had been my plan until I worked this out. And look at that raglan. You see it? Like that's it down there. That row is the raglan row. I just think it looks so good. I just love it. So yeah, so that is where we're at with this. I'm just going to keep going basically. It's now, like I say, it's now on my needles. The good news is that once I've worked through the yoke, what I probably will do is work through the yoke and do a little bit of the body, do the collar and do a sleeve, and at that point I can write it up and start working a bit like that's when I can start on like the grading process of the tech editing and things, and like that can all start happening, and then I just at my own pace to finish the body, and there's no massive rush. And I say like slow going, but I feel like I've not knit on this all week and there's still like something. So yeah, the Holst is pretty firm. Not problematically so, but it doesn't feel like, it's not soft. And I've talked about this before, I'm on the fence with Holst. I feel like I've seen Holst finished objects and they're just stunning and they're so soft and beautiful. So I'm hoping this is going to soften up. My plan really is that once I finish the yoke, I think at that point I will block it. Firstly, so I can understand if the yoke is fitting the way I want it to, and at that point I can like add the neckline and like understand how that's looking, but also just to see if it softens up. If I'm still not liking how it's feeling, I might be looking for another yarn to knit a sample in. It's not Holst, but these colours are impeccable. I have it already in my stash. It's DK weight, so I think it would be a very easy, like I have a lot of yarns on my to knit list that are DK weight, so I think it'd be pretty easy to substitute out another colour, another yarn. But yeah, it's just, it's really fun. I've not had very much time this week because I've not had very much like I've done a lot of knitting, but I've done a lot of stockinette plain knitting where I've been in work meetings, or I've been waiting for videos to upload, or I've been reading. Like I've not really had a lot of focused knitting time. Like it's been a very mindless. When I've gone to knitting this week, I've wanted to not think. And this does require a little bit of thought. So it's good though, I picked it up last night for the first time since the weekend, and it felt so good to get some stitches done. So I think I might try and get some more done on this maybe tonight, maybe over the weekend. Maybe my little reward for releasing the Lanark will be some dedicated knitting time on this sweater. Oh, something's funny's happening there. So yeah, it's not got a name yet. Somebody commented on the last video about how it looks like the flooring in the Kelvin Grove, which is a museum art gallery in Glasgow, and it does remind me a lot of like the tiles of a lot of Glasgow tenement flats. So I might try to find a name that's inspired by Glasgow tenement flats, but I did have a look, like I looked up a list of place names in Glasgow and they all just like if you're from Scotland, like if you're not, they might sound really interesting, but I just can't like disassociate. I can't remove the association between the name and the place for me. So like, I just think of all like the Gorbals. Like I'm not going to call my sweater the Gorbals because the Gorbals are the Gorbals. So yeah, I might be waiting a little while on the name for that one. I have a list of Scottish place names on my phone, and when I've got a new design I like scroll through them and I'm like, do any of these sound right? Do these click? And there's one which might click, but we're in no rush to name them. That can come later. So I think that's everything. Oh, the last thing I wanted to mention is that the Lento knit along, which we've been running with Amy Palco from the Meaningful Stitch, has finished. It finished on Monday. I went to knit night a little bit early, took my laptop, and we went through all the posts and picked the winners. There were 1,002 entries into the Lento knit along. That is huge. That is so many entries. So thank you if you took part. I hope you enjoyed it. I've had messages from people being like, thank you so much, I really enjoyed knitting this pattern. One of the winners is knitting a Lento for every month of the year. That's very cool. And yeah, I hope if you took part you enjoyed it, and it was really nice to do. I really enjoyed it. I've not done a knit along in a while, so that felt like good fun. I don't think I'll run one again until September, but I like doing it, and it was lovely to do one with Amy. That was so fun. So we've contacted the winners. I think we've heard back from all of them, bar one actually. One of them I've not heard back from, and that is the winner of the big prize, which was a sweater's quantity of yarn and a pattern. So that's just reminded me I probably should send them a reminder. Otherwise everyone's been contacted, and there's a post over on Amy's Instagram. We both took our Lentos to knit night on Monday, and we took a little selfie in the garden of the pub. So that's over on her Instagram with all the details of the winners. We ended up with 6 prizes, which was amazing. And yeah, that was the Lento knit along, so I hope you enjoyed if you took part. And yeah, a little life update. Manic week, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm very glad it's Friday. I'm looking forward to being able to go and I'm going to finish this filming and I'm going to go and publish the Lanark pattern, and I'm looking forward to that happening because yeah, it just like, it feels like I'm always pretty organised, right? Like I'm pretty much on top of things. I've got the list of things I need to do before the release. I don't know, but for some reason it's still stressful. Like until it's out in the world, it's still stressful. And also you never know how it's going to do. Like, there's always a risk it's just going to completely flop. And I don't know, you put all this work into it and you've no idea. Like, it's not like an exam where like you get the right answer. Can you tell that I have been raised on academic achievement being something that's praised? Like, if you work really hard for an exam, you can score full marks. You can't really score full marks with pattern designing. It really just is about whether people want to knit your design or not. So it always ends up being a pretty intense week. But that's fine. I'm looking forward to that being finished. We then have Aperitivo Friday. We got back from Italy 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And on the Friday whilst we were in Italy, we were there for a week, we were in Turin and we went to a vermouth bar and had, like, before we went out for dinner, we went and had some vermouth cocktails and some snacks. It was just some olives and some like salted chips, crisps. But it was so nice. It was just so lovely. And so we have now instilled Aperitivo Fridays in. So last week was my Aperitivo Friday, so I made the cocktail and I made the snacks, and this week is Sam's Aperitivo Friday, so he is making the cocktails and the snacks. I'm really looking forward to that. Like, that'll feel quite like a celebratory tone, I think, for today. And then tomorrow's like an adulting day. I have to like clean the bathroom and like change the bedding and like do all those boring things. And then on Sunday we're going to watch Ireland and Scotland in the Six Nations rugby game, which I'm really excited for. It's fun to watch Scotland play at home. The home crowd is a very good crowd. Their statistics for playing at home are much higher than their statistics for playing away. They play very well there. I think it's because the Scotland fans are so enthusiastic. But I'm looking forward to that one. I'm going with, it's Sam and I going, but my parents are also going, so we're not sitting together, but we're getting some lunch before with my sister. And that's about it, I think. Nothing else big planned for the rest of the month. I've got lots of knitting to get done. We've finalised the date for my photos for the Corrin cardigan. My photographer is going on maternity leave after that, so don't know what's going to happen. How dare she? How dare she create new life when I have pictures to be taken? So I think that'll be the last one for a while with her, and we'll have to try and do some DIYing until then, I think. I'm very excited because there are going to be six of us for the Corrin pictures, because so many knitters from Knit Night are taking part, and we have got a rainbow of colours, and we've worked it out so that Amy, I changed the dates around because Amy Palco, Meaningful Stitch, couldn't make the original date, so we've moved it forward a day so she can take part, and I am casting on an orange version. So I think the yarn might come today. It's been dispatched. I'm using Cascade 220, which I love, real workhorse yarn, in orange. So we'll wait and see if that comes. Maybe I'll cast that on today. I've also started work on my, I actually had to rip it out to start again, on my magazine submission. I've got a design coming out in a magazine later in the year, I don't even know when it's coming out actually. Maybe December, I guess. And I can't really talk about it until it's out, which is a shame, because I share all my knitting gear, so it feels a bit weird. I feel a bit secretive having knitting that I can't talk about, but I will talk about it once it's been released. The colours are not my colours, I will say this. It's interesting to knit outside of my comfort zone, and I'm enjoying the challenge of it, but I definitely find it harder, like it's trickier to be inspired by the colours when they're not colours you would pick. But what happens is the company, the publisher, that's the one I'm looking for, own the rights to the pattern for the first 12 months, and then after a year the designer owns the rights. And I'm already thinking ahead because we're literally talking about like winter 2024. But my plan is to then, maybe I'll do it earlier, but my plan is to at some point make myself a nice like neutral coloured version. It's a two colour pattern, and the one I'm using is in very bright colours, and I think I will do mine in like a nice beige. Maybe I'll pick a colour, but I think I'll pick a more like in my wheelhouse colour. Oh, that's a dramatic clap. So yeah, I think that's everything for me. Hopefully the footage is working this time. I feel like it will. I'm feeling good about it. And thank you all for your continued support around here. If you leave lovely comments, or if you have subscribed, or if you like the video, or if you go and visit the Lanark on Ravelry, or if you don't do any of those things but you are someone who sticks around and watches a video whenever I publish one, thank you for that. I'm feeling like very loved by the knitting community right now, and it's a nice place to be. I feel like I'm part of something, which is, I guess, what we're always looking for. So yeah, thanks for sticking around and for watching. I might be back with a video next week, probably not a podcast. I'm thinking about doing a video comparing some raglans. I knit a lot of basic raglan sweaters. I'm considering that. We'll see how busy next week is. I might not get it done next week, but if I do, I'll be back then. And if not, I will see you in 2 weeks' time for some more knitting. We'll see what I have completed by then. Have a good few weeks. Enjoy your knitting. Bye!